We've shared with you before the great statistical analysis and the numbers that Emmanuel Saez has looked at. He's an economist, and he looked at numbers from the IRS and showed that, under earlier recessions and then economic growth after those recessions, the top 1% would get a lot of the resulting benefits as we bounce back from those recessions. And we've showed you these numbers before. Let me show it to you again. Under the Clinton expansion after the recession, the top 1%, and you can see it on the right-hand column there, got 45% of the benefit. Now that's a lot for the top 1%, but it's only gotten worse. You see under the Bush expansion, they got 65%. But Matt Stoller has written about this in Naked Capitalism. He makes a great point. And he drew those circles there so you can see it clearer. Under Obama's recovery, the top 1% actually got 93% of the benefits. So economic inequality has only gotten worse under the Obama administration. Now, why is that? Now, it's not that President Obama is proposing right-wing economic proposals that are even more draconian than Bush's. No, Bush's were more right-wing, okay, but not by a lot. So, for example, President Obama, unfortunately, goes along and actually pushes for all these things that do lead to income inequality. For example, they're doing free trade deals now, right, with Colombia, South Korea, and now they want to expand it to almost all of Asia, the South Korean portion of it. But, you can make an argument for that deal, you can make an argument against that deal, but the one part you cannot justify is a free trade deal with Panama. We've talked about this before. The economic benefits are nearly nothing, okay? But the reason they've included that is because Panama is a great offshore tax haven for American corporations. So-called American corporations, but they keep their money in places like the Cayman Islands and Panama. And that's a giant gift for tax evasion for corporations. Now, the less taxes they pay, the more taxes we pay, the more benefit that goes to the rich, the more the middle class has to suffer. So why would President Obama sign that? Well, it's because he actually, if you look at the combination of all these things, he seems to agree with it. He also signed the Jobs Act. And Matt points out all these things. And Jobs Act, as we've explained on the show before, is an open invitation to fraud. Almost every regulator that has worked in government before says, oh my God, why have they done this? So for example, after you go public with a stock, it depends on how much the company is worth, you might not have to report your internal accounting for up to 5 years. Well, that's saying go ahead and do fraud for 5 years. Not every company is going to do it, but if you're a company that, or a person who wants to set up a fraudulent company, it gives you 5 years to run the scam. And it has no upside. No, they say it creates jobs, but no, it makes the markets more uncertain. It might actually kill jobs, because who's going to invest when they think, well, I don't know if the company's fraudulent or not. So again, there was a Republican proposal, but President Obama enthusiastically signed it. And then finally, he could have done an executive order that would lead to campaign spending disclosures for government contractors. Now, why would you be against that? Shouldn't we find out if government contractors are giving money to our politicians and thereby doing crony capitalism? But President Obama, pretending to be progressive in that case, again, says, no, I'm going to go with the right-wing position. I'm not going to sign that executive order. Now, these are just 3 examples that Stoller gives, but you can give endless examples as we have on the show. So part of the answer is President Obama has been fairly right-wing in his proposals and his legislation, right? But not as right-wing as President Bush. And I've talked about this in the context of civil liberties and how, unfortunately, President Obama is not as bad as President Bush because he's not doing the torture, et cetera, but he has put a stamp of approval on the Bush policies, and that has led to big problems in that field. So I wanted to add something to Matt Stoller's piece based on something he said, because it triggered in me, oh, I got it. He's doing the same thing in the economic realm that he did in civil liberties. So let me show you the spectrum here, right? Basically, on a 1 to 10, from far left to far right, President Bush's proposals were all the way at a 10, right? These are economic proposals that are really right-wing. But the Democrats would fight him. Not a lot, but they'd fight him enough so that they'd get that down to about a 6 on that spectrum. So the Bush results wind up there. Now, they're right-wing. It's bad, right? Democrats didn't put up that much of a fight, but at least they fought him a little bit. For example, they didn't let him privatize Social Security. Now, with President Obama, his proposals are not as right-wing as President Bush's. So they're about there. They're about an 8 on that spectrum. Now, I tell you why they're still pretty far right for all the reasons I just listed. But since he's a Democrat, the Democrats don't fight him. He's their president. So the Obama results are at the same place that his proposals were. They're about an 8. So in the end, you see that Obama's results oftentimes, not every time, but oftentimes, wind up being more right-wing than President Obama's. That's why, one of the many reasons why economic inequality under President Obama has actually been worse than under Bush. Because Democrats surrender, they don't fight, and so we have proposals that are way, way right-wing. And, you know, on proposals that President Obama claims he fights for, things like the Bush tax cuts, what happened? Well, those he gave up on. And for, you know, compromises on issues that were so easy, like unemployment, which they could have easily won that political battle, the nuclear defense treaty, which the Republicans were in favor of. These are fake compromises. And in the end, the rich got to keep the Bush tax cuts. That's why we're, you know, always at an 8. And President Obama says, no, don't worry, re-elect me and I might go to 7. It's not really very good reasoning. And you see how we wind up in the right-wing position that we're in all of these fields, and in this case, with economic inequality.